Animal Crossing New Horizons has been out for a while now, and I, like everybody else, have been playing it quite a bit over the course of this year. Although I will say, not nearly as much as my girlfriend has been. She has something like 600 hours in it, and she still puts in a few hours every day. Anyway, before I get more into the video, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for taking such a hiatus from video making. I got a lot of comments over time of people telling me that they wanted to see more, that they wished I had more views, and believe me, I wanted to make more videos, and I still do. I've just been insanely busy. I've been working on a bunch of different projects, such as Calico. I was a sound designer on that. That was actually in a Nintendo Indie Direct recently. It's crazy. I also was one of the arrangers on A Merry Hyrule Christmas. Me and some friends had a great time putting the music together for that, so hopefully a lot of you were able to listen to that over the holidays. Things are looking like they'll be a little bit more relaxed for me in the new year, so I'm hoping to get a few more videos out soon. I really can't promise anything though, because my work schedule is really volatile. And really quick, I didn't think that they would be done so soon, and I somehow lost my session file for the audio on this video, so I have to edit it in like this, but I just wanted to give my partner a shout out since they did these awesome drawings of me that I'll be using from now on. Go and check out their work on Instagram or Twitter with the handle @orangejuice. That's like orange juice, but it's with a C. And they also take commissions, so if you're wanting any characters done for any reason and you like their work, hit them up. Alright, back to the normal track. And I will take the time to say that if you haven't subscribed and you like my videos, I would really appreciate it if you did so. I try to make these as good as I can, but I have a very small subscriber count, so it's hard to cut through YouTube algorithms. Anyway, I wanted to do a couple follow-up videos on the hourly music in New Horizons, on what works, what doesn't work, and where I wish the music could have been better. I think there's some lacking in overall quality compared to past Animal Crossing games. I was reading a lot of comments that were saying things such as, well, they're their own games, you can't compare the music between New Leaf and New Horizons because they wouldn't work with each other, and yeah, you can compare them. It's a completely reasonable expectation, especially when New Horizons flips so much of what was established in the past for Animal Crossing music. Anyway, I'll save all of that for a later video though. Today, I actually wanted to start out with a ranking video of the hourly themes. I thought this would be a fun way for us to all sit down, go through them together, and talk about each hourly track in just a little bit more detail with the added benefit of doing a list. There's 24 tracks to cover, and I'll play each one behind me as I talk. And just so that we're clear, this is my personal opinion, and it isn't official in any way whatsoever. My criteria for rating tracks was based on the feel, or how well it matched the time of day, how well it used the main theme, and how good the overall composition was. In ranking them, I did try to go off the actual composition as much as I possibly could, but there are a couple times when the feel especially ranks a track higher or lower. There's a lot to cover, so I'll just be doing a brief blurb on most of them to keep this video on the shorter side. If there's any that you'd like me to cover more in the future down the line, be sure to let me know. And first on the list, coming in at 24, we have 11 PM. This one is a mega bummer for me, since 11 PM was one of my favorite tracks in New Leaf. The bass line is pretty lame, it's repetitive, and I would even argue that it's distracting. The synths don't really fit, so even though there's some neat interplay with statements of the melody, it just falls flat. I guess it's good for nighttime music, I suppose, but you'll see that there's tracks that do it better. At 23, we have 2 PM, and despite nailing the feeling of what 2 PM is like through the rhythm and harmony, 2 PM is honestly irritating to me because blah dot. I don't like it. The drum part is incredibly uninteresting around this, and the bass interlude isn't that great either. The organ's a neat idea, but it just plugs away at chords, and I don't feel like they capitalize on it enough, and I don't like it. Number 22 is 3 AM, because yeah, sure, there can be a comedy track, but that doesn't mean that I'm gonna like it. To this track's credit though, I think there's some good stuff to be said about it. There's neat interplay between the melodies and statements of the main theme as they're presented are pretty cool. I do like the muted trumpet as well, and the guitar statement of the theme, but honestly when you rank this against the other music, it just doesn't appeal as much. You've got the obvious shaking of the shaker, the consistently thin orchestration, and super fragmented statements of music, making it harder to appreciate the hourly music here. I guess though the music is probably saying, hey you, go to bed, you're not very smart for staying up like this. So it's kind of a funny track to me if you think of it that way, but you know, it's still gonna be number 22. And in at 21 is 1 p.m., and I feel like I might upset some people with this one. To this track's credit, I know what they're trying to do with giving all the space in the world to each instrument, building it all around the bass, but there's just not enough activity for any of the parts to work for me. You get a brief snippet of the track working when the synth comes in with the main theme, then it's just gone again. The repetition of the guitar part really drags it down for me, and I just feel like the track is unfinished and just had room for a lot of improvement. And at 20 is 12 a.m. This was a really hard track to rate because in one sense I really like what it accomplishes, but on the other side, it has a couple gaps that really it could use better. The biggest asset this track has is the way that the percussion and the melody interact with each other, but they could take this a lot further. Harmonies are nice, and in one sense I think they work nicely for this time, but I keep wanting to fill parts in my head for something that's more like 6 or 7 p.m. It's just really conflicting for me. I didn't know if I wanted to put it down here or actually way higher on the list, but I decided down here. There's more I don't like about it. 8 p.m. comes in at number 19, and the biggest issue with this one for me is that it should be used for literally the opposite time of day. I think this track would be perfect for 8 a.m. Perfect. As a composition, though, it's a little boring. There's a couple neat things about the main theme, such as where it deceptively resolves to a harmony that your ears won't expect. The rhythmic interplay between the bass and the guitar is nice as well, but like the other tracks up to now, the positives they really don't help to add to the overall vibe for me. It's lacking in general. And now we're actually going forward 12 hours to 8 a.m. at number 18. I'm not a big fan of this one either. The feel of the time just isn't here. It's really percussive, and it's way too active for morning times. I'm sure the music is meant to be saying something like, "Hey you, lazy, get up, you're gonna be late." Which, that's great and all, but that's not really what I feel the music should encapsulate here. I'd love to hear this one at around 2 p.m. instead. Compositionally though, there's some cool stuff going on which has it higher among the bottom half. The percussiveness of it is decently interesting, and I love when the synth and the guitar match up, especially when the synth takes off on the elongated syncopated section. It's an appropriate sound as well. In comparison to the others though, it's slower because I just think other tracks have more interesting stuff going on. This one was hard, but I think I have 4 p.m. at number 17. It really was difficult. I originally had this one around like 22 actually, and then when I came back the next day, I liked it a lot more. The feel of 4 p.m. is great, even though I wish this would be more for like 7 or 8 a.m., but the composition is just a touch boring for me. Like 8 a.m., there's some nice interplay between the sections, and they manage to stay decently varied. The main theme isn't as recognizable, which does give it some points as well. They do have some nice sounds for the synth picked overall, and I think I stand by 17 at this point. It is being held back by not leaning into its strengths enough. And now we're into my mid-tier ranking with number 16 and 9 p.m. This one might be a slightly hot take, as I bet some people are expecting this one to be lower, and granted, I almost swapped it with 4 p.m. But I think that this one really succeeds with melodic, rhythmic, and harmonic interplay between the sections and the instruments. Each instrument really has its own space to exist musically. 1 p.m. and other tracks attempted this up to this point, but I think there was just too much going on, or not enough going on actually, to give some of the more complicated statements their space. The main theme is altered nicely here, and it's a great fit for 9 p.m. Although, I personally would love to see this one for 3 a.m. instead, since it's so similar in conception and just, sounds better, And hot on the heels of 9 p.m. is 4 a.m. Like 9 p.m., there's really nice interplay of the main theme in regards to the changing of the melody, rhythm, and harmony, and also the changing of the instrumentation mid-statement. I like this a lot. This interplay is featured almost the entire time, which is awesome since it stays really varied, and it makes the loop great because of that. The rest of the track is holding back how effective I think this really could be, though. I just wish that there was some more of a through line or type of pedal orchestration gluing everything together. Serving this purpose, we do have the shaker again from 3 a.m., but it's just not effective at this point. Spoilers for later in the video, though. The shaker's not always a bad thing. It'll succeed later. This track is nice for sure, but I just wish that it capitalized more on what it set out to do. Historically, 7 p.m. is one of my favorite times of Animal Crossing music, and here it comes in at number 14. There really isn't anything wrong with this track, and honestly, it's probably a standout for a lot of people. It sets the vibe of 7 p.m. really well, but comparing it to the better tracks, or even some of the previous few maybe, this one becomes hard to rank. There's parts of this one, such as the descending harmony line, that's a little cheesy to me. There's some neat harmonies, but I feel like the main theme isn't as successful as it could potentially be. Rhythms could be way more varied here, but there definitely is something to be said about the lack of complexity, which is actually this track's biggest strength. More than any other track, it probably does find the balance best. 3 p.m. is so hard to place. Oh my god, it was rough. I think I've finally settled on 13 though. I like a lot of what this track does, and I think it actually nails the hourly music of an island better than most of the other tracks in this game. But in the same vein, it's definitely music more meant for 6 a.m. to me. The trumpet is so tasteful in this track, and the auxiliary percussion really works, with the bass line even feeling like an extension of this. The thing that's really dragging this track back is the harmony. This one just feels like, here's the melody in a key. Oh, let's transition. Here's a new key. Let's do it in this key. Okay, let's change keys again. And it holds it back. And now we are in the top half of the rankings with 6 a.m. coming in at 12. I like the bass ostinato a lot in this one, or the repeated line. It's super simple, but it pulls it off well. The synth sound is a big plus for this one as well, and the bongos are an excellent use of percussion. The way that the guitar accents the bass is really appreciated too. If anything, this track could be a little bit more active and use more of what it's got going on. At number 11 is 1 a.m. I love the trombone in this. It's a very welcome addition, and it's not really expected for 1 a.m. for me. The more relaxed feel is nice here as well, and it allows for good space of all the lines. Honestly, I just love the overall structure of this composition. It's very tasteful. I'm not a big fan of the synth stinger as it kind of sits out a bit in the mix for me, but the sound of it is actually, it's quite great. I just wish that it didn't attack so hard. There's some interesting stylistic choices in this one as well that keep it from ranking higher on my personal list, such as the heavy staccatos, and that I wish that there was more motion at times. But overall, this track is just, I like it. And we have finally reached the top 10 with 11 a.m. There's some really neat stuff happening in this one. There's some great choices of harmony, the bass line is simple and nice, and I love the counter melodies that happen after the main theme statement. Speaking of the main theme, I really like that it's altered ever so slightly just by ending on the repeated note. The interplay of all the parts here is really good, and this piece has tons of room to breathe despite there being a pretty consistent guitar part throughout. I just wish that there was more to it. I'm saying that a lot, but it's true. And in at number 9 is 9 a.m. I promise that this wasn't planned. This one is nice morning music. You're about your day, it's kind of active, but it's not too much like 8 a.m. was. I do love the space of this one. They use a lot of staccatos for separation of notes, and that allows this one to breathe a lot. Notice the difference of how effective it is here, but this wasn't effective in 1 a.m. I had said. It's a nice comparison. The main theme usage is just a little lacking since it's so verbatim, but the way that it stays active just enough, allowing the instruments their own space to exist, it's really nicely done here. This might be another hot take, but I have 10 p.m. at being at 8. I do like a lot about this track. This one definitely encapsulates 10 p.m. on an island for me, and the snippets that you get of the melody are really nice, especially because they aren't full statements. I really dig that. The way these play into the harmonic variations is much appreciated as well, and I love it when the more active statement of the melody comes in. The only thing with this one is I just wish it had a touch more instrumentation or maybe more rhythmic variety in the guitar. Overall, though, it's a really strong track. It's 7 at 7. Again, not planned. There's really nice usage of the main theme throughout this one, even managing to hit stinger territory a couple times. The piano and the synth sounds just work, and the overall rhythmic pulse is a dotted quarter, quarter note. And that's one of my favorite rhythms ever. I use it all the time in my own writing. Really, the only thing with this track is, to me, it's early afternoon music and not morning music. And Noon comes in at number 6. There's a lot to like here. This track is really active, which I appreciate for the hour, as it's just a nice track for a lunch break. The percussion carries this one, while more relaxed melodic or harmonic elements happen in the background. Also, I love the selection of sounds. The harmonies are so good here, and I love how the main theme lines carry into deceptive harmonies. There's just too many good things happening here. We're now in the territory of where we're just comparing good music against good music. And with that said, breaking into the top 5 is 10 a.m. The composition is really nice on this one. It's got an excellent structure, and hearing a trumpet for the first time in the day is very welcome. When the instruments come in and they trade melodies back and forth, it's really tasteful, and the bass line really accentuates this well, acting almost as a melodic instrument itself. When the instruments all come in together, I love it. I love it. It just doesn't stick around long enough, though, before it gives more space. More than any other track, this one might most effectively allow for the increased activity level, while still giving adequate space to all the instruments. Ah yes, 5 p.m. is probably the one that many people are expecting to be number 1, and instead I have it at number 4, personal preference and all. There's some really good stuff happening here for sure though, and it's one of the best on the soundtrack. The feel and instrumentation is wonderful, and the synth lines happening behind the instrumentation as little counter melodies is super effective. The harmonies are also really nice. I like the interplay a lot, and a more prominent melody throughout is good too. The main theme isn't nearly as obvious here because it's hidden a bit more in the main melody, and you can fill in the gaps of it in your head. It fits the time perfectly as well. The only problem I have with this track is that it just doesn't really feel like Animal Crossing hourly music to me. Which brings us to the top 3 and why these are the top 3. At number 3 we have 2 AM. This one is just an all-around good piece of music, and it's very Animal Crossing. It's textbook Animal Crossing. There's unique harmonies that pepper the track at times, and a nice repeating ostinato in the guitar line for most of it. This one has the ticking again, and this time I actually really like the ticking. It makes me think of the passing of time here. If you haven't noticed, they do use it for all of the very late night or early morning tracks. It's used in this case to push the melody along and provide a little bit more motion. It serves its purpose well here where it doesn't in other places. The main theme is used in its entirety here, which I actually really like because you almost never hear this track because it's so early in the morning, late at night, however you want to look at it, so it just won't get too repetitive. It's super reminiscent of the time of night that it's at, and it's got a really nice variety of the sections. It's a very pleasant track. A+ work. Number 2 is 6 p.m. This one is great early evening music, and it's probably the most representative of Animal Crossing hourly music. I love the usage of the main theme as the primary melody, and it succeeds in providing a nice contrast of space to music. Harmonies still help it to have a very nice island feel to it, and while I'm usually not a fan of the guitar backing, it's very welcome here. The accordion has a nice touch as well, and this track, it just works, and it's so good. And this is it. 5 AM is the best one. I could probably spend an entire video talking about how smart this track is. Everything just works seamlessly. The entire track is built around full but fragmented statements of the main melody, and the swelling of the accompaniment parts not only lead into these statements but build the harmony around it. The ticking done by the shakers returns, but the accents here really provide a nice sense of motion and passage of time to an otherwise slow track. This absolutely nails the feel of 5 AM. In practice, you go outside, the world is calm, no one is awake yet, and the world is all to yourself. It allows for the space of the melody, harmony, percussion, and it never lets any part step on any of each other's toes. This track is Animal Crossing. What does 5 AM sound like? It sounds like this. It's a really unique track because it's the first track of the day since the game technically switches to the next day of activity at 5 AM. For many people who might wake up early in the morning and play a little bit before they go to work like my girlfriend often does, this is the first track that they'll hear. And this is the one that sets the tone for the rest of the day. It's the main theme telling you, good morning, it's time to start your day. It closes the previous day's events, yet brings you into a new series of adventures with your animal friends. Animal Crossing hourly themes should feel like a diary, that at any given point of the day, the music encapsulates the feeling of that time. 5 AM does this perfectly, and it lets you know that today, well, it's gonna be a good day. And that's it. Overall, doing this made me have a bit more appreciation for the music in New Horizons. I definitely want to do a couple more videos on New Horizons yet. I think I said that I wanted to do a generic game video, and also I do want to do a follow-up talking about the music in a broader spectrum as well, in regards to what works for the game and what I wish was better. But in the meantime, I'd definitely appreciate if you subscribed, liked the video, you know, all those typical YouTube things. Again, it's really hard for me to make videos a priority when YouTube engagement is so low, and right now every subscriber really does count. If you've ever got questions about writing game music or getting into the industry, please don't hesitate to reach out to me as well. I hope that you've had an excellent holiday season and that you're safe and healthy during these times. Take care, everyone.